Why walk when you can fly? Seriously, every time I wander inside the Telvanni tower, it feels like that's their unofficial motto. These towers are basically a maze with tunnels twisting in every direction, and half the time you have to levitate just to get anywhere. Definitely not what I'd call practical. So why do Telvanni live in places like this? That's exactly what I want to dive into today. We are going to take a look at Telvanni wizards, their personalities, how they think and act, their rules, and also the practical and safety side of living in these crazy mushroom towers. We'll also talk about what the mushrooms themselves allow, from unique structural designs to special properties that make these towers both dangerous and fascinating. Okay, so let's start with Telvanni towers and how perfectly they reflect Telvanni isolation. These towers are tall, narrow, and honestly pretty inconvenient. Even the entrances aren't exactly welcoming. Most of the time, you have to climb long tendrils or awkward stairs with no handrails or any other safety measures just to get inside. So if you are afraid of heights, Telvanni towers are probably an instant no for you. And once you step inside, it doesn't get any friendlier. It's dark, not very inviting, and full of tight tunnels that are hard to navigate. Passing another person can feel like a whole challenge on its own. Telvanni architecture doesn't invite people in, it filters them out. And that actually makes a lot of sense, because Telvanni society is not about community. It's about individual power. Want to speak with a Telvanni master? Then you better have enough magical skill, or at least be clever enough to stock up on potions and spell scrolls. If you can't even navigate their home, then in their eyes, you probably don't deserve to be there. And if you don't make it, that's unfortunate, but not important to the Telvanni. What makes this even more interesting is that these narrow tunnels aren't only meant to keep people out. They are also practical, which sounds weird at first. How could this possibly be practical? But according to the book Guide to Telvanni Construction, one of the purposes of these tight vertical shafts is that they take up far less interior space. And honestly, when you think about it, that actually makes sense. Imagine how much space a normal staircase would take in a tower like this. Not to mention climbing all those stairs every single day. The leg burn would be very real. And somehow, I really can't imagine Telvanni wizards doing that kind of cardio. So in a strange way, tunnels that require levitation actually make sense. At first, they seemed really impractical to me, but from a different perspective, it turns out to be a very efficient approach. It also means more privacy, because a design like that allows rooms to be spread out so they're not connected by thin walls. And privacy is something that Telvanni take very seriously. I also think these tunnels work as a security measure, especially against other Telvanni wizards. Just think about it. The Telvanni have a very casual attitude toward violence and assassination as tools for advancement. Every Telvanni mage is trying to prove they are superior to the others, which means even fellow Telvanni are rivals and probably the biggest threat of all. You never really know who might be planning to get rid of you next. We even get pulled into the ruthless intrigues and power struggles during several quests. That's probably why the strongest wizards choose to live in isolated towers. It's safer and it helps them protect their magical knowledge. Nobody wants to lose the race for power. And with these wild, confusing tunnels inside the towers, it becomes much harder to plan a clean assassination. Try explaining to an assassin where exactly to go when the entire place is a vertical maze. While someone is flying around looking for their target, they can easily be spotted by another wizard. And since mushroom towers are living organisms, it's very possible the tower itself alerts its master that an intruder is inside. From that moment on, the wizard can prepare for a fight. Sure, they could run away, but Telvanni are not cowards. They would never hide. Their ego is way too big for that, and they would probably treat it as a small challenge or a bit of fun for the day. The same tunnel logic applies to stealing. Telvanni towers are full of valuable artifacts and rare magical items, and their maze-like interiors definitely don't make a thief's job any easier. Of course, there are exceptions like Divai Fear, who actually collects powerful artifacts and invites people to steal them. He even makes you run around like crazy, chased by people infected by corporate disease, just to find out that the best loot was waiting for you in the tower all along, like this unique cuirass or scourge. But even stealing Telvanni treasures can be extremely dangerous. Take the Daedric Sanctuary Amulet for example. It looks valuable and harmless, just a ring with no effects. You equip it and suddenly you are teleported to a Daedric shrine and attacked by a powerful Dremora. Sure, if you are strong enough, you can defeat him and get the Daedric Crescent, but if you're not, that ring is probably the last thing you ever stole. So I think this is one of the reasons Telvanni live in mushrooms. They let the interiors have weird shapes with confusing using tunnels, something normal architecture could never do. This kind of design definitely helps keep the Telvanni safe and isolated from most people. And it's not just the towers themselves. Most of them are built on islands, which makes getting there a bit harder since you can't just walk there or hop on a silt strider. You have to take a boat, use a Mage's Guild teleport, or get creative with spells like water walking, jump, or levitate. But let's be honest, there is also a huge ego factor here. A giant mushroom tower growing straight out of the landscape is impossible to ignore. It's basically a magical middle finger to everyone else. It's like the Telvanni are saying, look what I can do, you can't, and I really don't care if you like it. And honestly, that fits House Telvanni perfectly. Think about it. They straight up refuse to join the Ebonheart Pact. One book even puts it in a funny way, saying they don't give a guar about the pact. The main reason for that refusal was slavery. Joining the pact would have meant recognizing Argonians and Khajiits as equals and freeing all of them who were currently slaves, and that was simply not acceptable to the Telvanni. Inside Telvanni towers, you'll see some slaves, not to mention the nearby slave markets. Just imagine someone like Mistress Therana actually giving up her Khajiit slave. That would never happen. I figured the only way she would get rid of him is by doing it herself with magic and then probably just get a new one from the market. In one quest involving her, you're supposed to bring her a skirt. Instead of trying it on yourself to see if it's cursed, you can give it to that poor Khajiit to wear and Therana gets rid of him instantly. That pretty much tells you everything you need to know about how she treats people. And of course, it's not just with slaves. When you wear the skirt yourself, she also attacks you. At least you have a chance to fight or escape, the Khajiit doesn't. According to one of the books I've read, Telvanni wizards are so strict about slavery that the Telvanni Council objects to attempts to change it. The right to own slaves is literally guaranteed by the terms of the Treaty of the Armistice. Out of curiosity, I actually looked up that treaty and you can find all kinds of information, even the full list of terms. Morrowind lore is huge, complex, and honestly pretty brutal in a lot of ways. Okay, so refusing the pact is one thing out of many that shows their ego. Another is how much they prefer to stay independent. They only cooperate with the other great houses when they absolutely have to. They tend to rely on loyal, well-paid, skilled retainers to handle services. They recruit from their own lower classes or just hire the craftsmen and specialists they need. And when military force is needed, they usually hire mercenaries or adventurers instead of leaning on alliances. So yeah, their preference for independence, isolation, and control is perfectly reflected in the way they live. Isolated islands, giant mushroom towers, no need for anyone else. If the Telvanni lived in normal stone towers, they would lose their identity. These wizards love being obeyed, so why not have a house that is almost like a servant? Mushrooms are living organisms, and Telvanni can control their growth to create massive towers shaped exactly to their needs. That sounds very Telvanni, obsessed with control and obsessed with power. Growing a Telvanni tower is not easy. It requires deep magical knowledge and constant attention. Every mushroom tower is proof of mastery. And honestly, who needs stone and wood when you can bend nature itself to your will? Mushrooms grow fast, they are flexible, and a single tower can house apprentices, retainers, and even slaves. Inside, you'll find laboratories, libraries, magical experiments, and living quarters all packed into one place. Around the main tower, there are smaller mushroom pots used by craftsmen or lower-ranking wizards. And let's not forget the open-air market selling armor, weapons, potions, and, well, slaves. You can just step out of your tower to get what you need, or even better, have someone like your slave or mouse do it for you. Basically, a mushroom tower is every Telvanni wizard's dream headquarters. And because these towers are alive, they can adapt, grow, and even repair themselves. No regular stone or wooden building could ever really compete with that. There are also some really fascinating things about these towers that make them even more convenient to live in. For example, they can filter salt water and make it drinkable, they have fire-resistant properties near water sources, and since the entire tower is one massive organism, including all the smaller pothouses, it gives the master incredible control. Want to punish a disobedient resident? From the research I've done, the master wizard could probably destroy their house using the long tendrils of the tower. That said, this is a pretty deep rabbit hole, and I actually go much deeper into it in another video. There, I compare real-world mushrooms, or rather fungi, to Telvanni mushroom houses. I did a lot of research for it using sources like the book Guide to Telvanni Construction, Bethesda Designer Notes, Wikipedia articles, YouTube videos, and more. It's linked on the end screen if you're interested. Okay, back to the towers. Like we said before, they're tall, and I don't think it's just about isolation, safety, safety or getting a nice view. These towers separate people vertically, with the masters living at the very top. And this is no accident. Height equals hierarchy. The higher you are, the closer you are to power, knowledge, and control. Telvanni society follows a strict caste system. Loyalty and obedience are expected from those below, while those with power are given enormous freedom. And they're not subtle about it. They are probably proud of it. One of Morrowind's books even says that the Telvanni Council places no limits on the ambition or enterprise of its individual members. If the Empire or other great houses want to challenge Telvanni expansion into the wilds of Vardenfell, they are free to try, but the Telvanni Council won't contribute any resources. In other words, do whatever you want, but don't expect any help. So what else can we say about Telvanni mushroom towers and houses? The mushrooms really emphasize how alien Morrowind is. Think about it. Right at the beginning of the game, you leave Seydanin to go to Balmora. If you don't take a Silt Strider and do it on foot, taking the path near Pelagia, the game already makes it clear that this world feels different. Compare that to Oblivion or Skyrim with their more familiar, lifelike landscapes. Then in Morrowind, you start seeing massive mushrooms everywhere. Once you reach Telvanni lands and see those towering mushroom structures, that sense of difference is pushed to the extreme. They don't look like European fantasy towers. They don't look like imperial cities. They don't look like anything familiar at all. And I think that's exactly the point. Telvanni architecture constantly reminds you that this world operates on different assumptions, different values, different aesthetics, different rules. And honestly, that's why Telvanni architecture is just one of the many great parts of Morrowind. Their homes are alive, dangerous, inconvenient, and alien, just like the wizards who live in them. The design is so clever that it doesn't just tell you who Telvanni are, it shows you. Oh, and guys, do you enjoy discussions about Morrowind or other retro games? If so, you're welcome to join the Discord server I set up recently. We talk about our Morrowind experiences, share hints and discoveries, and beyond that, we also discuss nostalgic games from our childhood and even share some memes. I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, thanks for watching.